GM everyone, welcome back to the Solana Weekly Wrap-Up, where we chat through Solana's biggest stories straight from the Solana Floor newsroom. I'm joined, of course, by our senior journalist, Finn, and we're going to break down what's moving the ecosystem, what's just noise, and what's actually worth your attention. Now, we would obviously love to be non-stop yapping about all the bullish news like ETF approvals, record-breaking inflows, Western Union buckling under the pressure of crypto adoption and signing a deal with Solana, etc. But before we get to those, I think we should probably start with the biggest elephant in the room right now, Finn, which is the gut-wrenching price action that we've seen this week in CT. All the reactions, it seems a bit confusing. It's a bit polarizing, to say the least. A few weeks ago, we were laughing about people like Ansem saying that he thinks we've topped, and maybe now he's the one laughing, right? Now, on the other side, today I heard people like Bitwise's Matt Hogan and a few other these TradFi experts rather confidently arguing that we might have actually bottomed, and they argued that the reason for that is rising institutional adoption. So that's a very long-winded way of saying it's crazy to me how detached investor sentiment feels right now from CT sentiment. Finn, what are your thoughts?
So the first thing that stands out to me here is that it's pretty wild that $1 billion liquidation event is almost like not even news anymore. You know, things like we used to have these kind of events and it would be a wipeout and people would go absolutely bananas for it. But the reality is that we're approaching a market where it's very, very common for $1 billion liquidation days. In this particular case, there was a lot going on. We got some rumors that Wintermute would be suing Binance, which obviously sent a lot of waves of fear through the market. A few hours after that, the Wintermute CEO came out and said, we have no reason to do that, where there's no lawsuit. You guys are all completely overreactive. So that steadied markets a little bit. But just after that, we had the $128 million balancer hack. The Stream Fund came out and said that one of their external fund managers lost $93 million in the last month. So there's a lot going on. There's a lot of fear. And while these aren't always Solana native events, obviously it's part of a wider market. So yeah, lots of fear around. People are scared, but inflows and ETFs are really good. So there's at least that as far as a glimmer of hope.
And it seems that, TradFi and sort of Wall Street conviction is steadily on the rise, right? I mean, if you're a bag holder of things like Sol, maybe your conviction is sort of teetering on the edge. I mean, we're seeing the fear in greed index turn, absolute fear, which is never a good sign of sentiment. But I think sometimes in the past it has proven itself to be a good time to buy. But speaking of conviction and that sort of distinction between CT and TradFi folks, inflows. Record-breaking inflows. We had the Sol ETF go live despite the government shutdown. We spoke about this last week. And it seems that, it's, at least for the time being, 2025's most successful ETF launch.
Yeah, and it has had a great start and it's continuing to perform really well. So every single day, BSOL is seeing 8-figure inflows. It was around kind of 50 million, 40 million, and that's dropped around 20 million on the last most recent update. But it sends a really clear sign. So, while CT is panicking and saying it's over, institutional players and TradFi suits are almost lining up to say, look, Sol's on a discount, I want to get in. And as Bitwise CEO Hunter Horsley accurately puts, these guys play long-term ball games. They're not here to jump into the ETF and then jump out again in the next week on the next pump. So pretty good indication that a lot of what we might call more mature players are really, really going deep into Sol at the moment.
How dare you call CT immature? Can't believe you've done that. But I mean, if Matt Hogan and all these TradFi experts are right, and they often are, this sort of debasement trade that they've been arguing that is going to sort of increase momentum towards the end of the year when traditional investors want to show their clients that they understand risk on assets like Bitcoin and all the rest. Likely a lot of capital allocation is going to move into these assets. So let's hope that all plays out. Meanwhile, Western Union picking Solana is still a bit of a thorn in the side of all the XRP army, and some of the ETHs are also very frustrated about it. So it seems to me that, years and years ago, if you think about why we all came into crypto, it was because we had this ideal of decentralization and disintermediation. And now we're sort of celebrating the fact that Western Union is launching a stablecoin on Solana. Why do I not feel euphoric about this, Finn?
Well, I probably don't feel euphoric because Western Union is late to the party in this respect. They're very excited about having a stable coin and facilitating remittances at greater efficiency for people. But this is something that has been possible on chain for years already. So that's probably why. I mean, it's great that they've chosen Solana. Obviously, that's a really great indicator, and it shows that Solana is the most fertile ground for these kind of businesses to start building upon. But Western Union is far from the first TradFi giant to join forces with on-chain markets. Their stablecoin USDPT is just joining the likes of PayPal. It's joining the likes of MoneyGram, Zoom, and Stripe, who are all coming on-chain these days. So perhaps not too late for Western Union, but I think they're really sensing the pressure of what crypto payments are able to inflict on them.
Well, as long as the XRP army can get over it, I think crypto will stop being so tribal about it. But your next story is about AI and vibe coding, right? It's an interesting angle. We haven't really spoken too much about it here, but I think it deserves a lot of attention. When we think about late stage, late cycle evaluations, and OpenAI recently came out with that $1 trillion valuation, right? So it's insane. It's complete la la land. And a lot of people are saying that it's a bit of a bubble forming, but aside from the absurdity of these prices, it seems AI also has risks for crypto and blockchain dev specifically, right?
Yeah, and vibe coding is really one of the biggest trends that we've seen in 2025. The NVIDIA CEO Jensen Huang said that the miracle of artificial intelligence is that nobody has to program anymore. So they're taking this idea that every single person in the world can be a developer. And while we can vibe code new apps en masse, I'm not sure that necessarily means we should, right? Because we don't know how safe a lot of this really is. And a recent survey by Stack Overflow, their 2025 developer survey, reported that 84% of developers today use AI tools in their workflows. And while that just illustrates how widespread AI use is in the development process, only 3.1% of developers actually have high trust in the code that gets output. So that paints a pretty alarming picture. If everyone's using it, but the experts don't actually trust it, we really need to be sure that there's actually a lot of human oversight that goes into the auditing process. So we spoke to Certora about this. They're great. They're one of the best and most reputable security companies in the blockchain world. Their chief scientist, Muli Sagev, said that existing AI audits really struggle to replicate the more complex hacks. So continued human oversight is essential to ensuring on-chain security.
Let's see where that one goes. I mean, 84% of devs using it and only 3% trusting it. That to me is a big red flag.
It's pretty alarming. Yeah, it's pretty alarming. But hopefully that changes. Hopefully either AI tools get better so that we have higher trust, or hopefully that the other way it goes is that developers actually kind of turn away from using this and they use their own heads a bit more. I would hope.
Fingers crossed. Now, Finn, I don't want to waste any more time. We have to talk about Pump.fun. It's a bit of the talk of the town. We spoke a bit about this last week as well, but obviously prices have crashed significantly since then. So I get the feeling that people in the trenches, or people that were in the trenches, are a bit more desperate for an airdrop, bit of a stimmy check from Pump.fun as ever. So, when airdrop?
Well, people are so desperate for the Pump.fun airdrop that all Pump.fun has to do is change their Twitter banner to include a picture of a parachute in it, and people go nuts. And that was enough for Pump.fun traders to say, you know what, airdrop's happening.
It's happening.
Yeah. So prediction markets went wild on Kalshi. I think the chances of a Pump.fun airdrop before the end of the year went up to 90% briefly. So you can show that appetite is there. People are just really, really hanging out for it. On the other side, I think what Pump is doing that's really cool right now is that they're really expanding beyond this meme coin world that they've dominated. They've opened the doors to Pump.fun Spotlight, which is essentially an incubator for value-backed utility coins that actually want to try and do something creative. So if you can get into Pump.fun's inner circle through something like Spotlight, there's probably a lot of great connections that can be made there, and you can really get your project in front of some good eyes. So well done to Pump.fun for trying to kind of expand their horizons, and really curious to see what happens next from that.
I get the feeling that they're trying a few different things, right? Which makes sense. I mean, a few months ago, everyone seemed up in arms about them earning $700 million and then sort of extracting that from the Solana ecosystem. So yeah, in a way, I'm really happy that they're funneling that back into innovative new systems. But I guess the question is, are they just sort of doing a bit of a spray and pray style tactic where they're just going to see what sticks and then double down on that? Or, are they spreading themselves too thin, do you reckon?
I don't think so. I think Pump has been quite discerning in a lot of its moves. They've been quite careful not to try and spray and pay. And I think that the incubator is something that is more, it's more of a specific angle that they're trying to take on. So obviously there's a lot of meme coins that get launched that are just kind of saturating the space and that aren't really net positive. But there are a lot of emerging teams that want to have the best possible launch for their coin. And, we've seen the success of ICOs through things like Metaplex Genesis and MetaDAO that we've spoken about in previous weeks. But Pump is also wanting to join that market, and I think with the resources they have and with the distribution they have, they can really set some things up for some emerging teams quite well.
I'll tell you what, if they took even a fraction of that $700 million and airdropped it, I think sentiment would be significantly higher than where it is today. So I'm crossing my fingers for that. Hopefully that plays out. But Alon, I guess he's in a bit of an interesting position now, right? So he's got to decide. Is it really the time for that? Are we going to sort of do a small airdrop and then maybe we'll do a bigger one later on? Do you have any, voices through the grapevine that are telling you if it's going to be a single big airdrop or they're going to sort of stagger it? Do you have any information on that?
I don't have any information, but I would suspect that they would do a big drop at once instead of drip feeding through. I think the expectation is that they've earmarked a certain percent of the supply, and think they want to go out with as much of that as possible. So it's a waiting game. We'll see. We don't know anything more than what Pump puts out, really.
Fingers crossed for all the trenches. Now, another super heartwarming airdrop-related story that you covered recently comes from deep within the Solana ecosystem. Moonwalk wanderers, right? People have been walking and stacking points for months and months now. And we found out that people in places like Venezuela have been receiving 4-figure airdrops, which I'm told makes a very significant difference in their daily lives. So I'm super, super happy to hear this. And I guess it's nice to hear that an airdrop went the right way for once, right? People are sort of happy with it. They're not complaining that they got too little of an allocation. So
yeah, so 100%. This is a really heartwarming story. This is one that makes you kind of feel good about what's going on in crypto instead of just dreading the next headline. So this is a really great collaboration between Moonwalk Fitness and the All Stars Academy. All Stars Academy is one of our sister companies here, and essentially they run grassroots education programs and events all around the world. In this specific example, we're talking about Venezuela and Nigeria, where All Stars meetups, people have been using Moonwalk. They've been able to get their steps up, they've been able to build healthy habits. And when Moonwalk TGE'd about a month ago, the rewards went out. And while it wasn't, the 5-6 figure airdrops that people put on CT and they love to boast about, what was fantastic about Moonwalk is that people don't need to have huge capital to play these games. If you want to do well in a DeFi airdrop, you need to have thousands ready to bird and to park in these protocols. Moonwalk didn't require any of that. You just turn up, you use the app, you get your steps in, and basically through doing that, people in places like Venezuela and Nigeria have been able to get, 4-figure airdrops. And while that might not sound like a whole lot to the average CT dweller, in places like Venezuela, a teacher salary is $15 a month. So if all of a sudden you get a $500 airdrop, that's a good kind of 4 years salary. And that gives you a huge amount of financial security for your family. So that's just a really, really wonderful thing that I think Moonwalk has been able to do. So GG awesome. Moonwalk. Well done.
Excellent. Yeah, that's great news. And I also know that people are farming SKR points for the upcoming potential airdrop, rumored to be big airdrop from the Seeker team. And a lot of people are saying, look, Moonwalk is one of those ways you can just go in and get your daily activity in there and have some DApp activity recorded as well. So as you said, GG Moonwalk. Now, my favorite part of your newsletter, Finn, is where you share the stat of the week and you share a tweet of the week. They're both rather bullish this week. Last week, it was a bit in between. So what's going on with the stat of the week and the tweet of the week?
Right, so first stat of the week, we're looking at Solana ETF flows. You can see BSOL day after day putting in 8-figure inflows. So that's tremendous. That illustrates to us TradFi is here, they're buying the dip, they want exposure, and they're hopefully not going anywhere anytime soon. We never know what's that going to be like. Following up with that, we've got Hunter Horsley saying that last week Sol opened a bridge to Solana for many investors. A lot of people who weren't able to get exposure before now can. $400 million in ETF inflows. It's what we've been waiting for, essentially. We've been projecting what ETF inflows could look like, and now we're getting clear proof that TradFi players want this and institutional players want more exposure. So it's all good news looking there.
All looking good. All right, well, cross your fingers, cross your toes, and hopefully TradFi folks can come and rescue our bags before Christmas. Quick reminder here that none of the information on Solana Floor is investment advice or financial advice. Now, if you want Finn's full breakdowns and his spicy hot takes every week, then head to SolanaFloor.com and subscribe to his newsletter. It is delicious, and you're going to learn a lot. Finn, thanks, mate. Chat soon.
Jack, thank you so much for your time. See you in a bit.